This is Orlando Sentinel Now.
Hello and welcome. It's Thursday, September 23rd, and this is Orlando Sentinel Now. Today, we're talking about a new rule and students in quarantine. We've also got a Florida Fresh Air feature for you, and we're discussing about what's going on underneath Friday Night Lights. I'm your host, Joe Mario Pedersen, and joining me today, I have education reporter Leslie Postal, Things to Do reporter Patrick Connolly, and high school sports reporter JC Carnahan. Thank you all so much for being here today. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Leslie, coming to you first here for one of your latest headlines. Florida's new Surgeon General issues a rule ending required school quarantines and says parents will make the choice. Jumping right into this, Leslie, we're talking about, of course, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, the new Surgeon General here, and his new rule. Could you tell us about what that is?
Yes, that rule basically gives parents the choice. If their child has been exposed to someone who has COVID but doesn't have symptoms, it's going to be up to the parent whether the child stays home or just keeps going to school, keeps playing sports, keeps doing their normal activities. Previously, that child had to quarantine at home for at least 4 days and possibly 7. So it is a big change.
Absolutely. And not only that, it seems as though that this new rule actually has some ramifications, as your report points out, toward county challenges towards the state's mask mandate ban. How so?
Right. Well, if you remember, there were a number of legal challenges to Governor DeSantis's ban on mask mandates, and school districts, several of them, including Orange counties, decided what they would challenge is the health department rule itself. Well, the rule changed yesterday when the new Surgeon General issued a new rule. And even though the mask mandate part stayed basically the same, the judge who was hearing the case said the rule that you challenged is now gone, so your case can't proceed. So we are waiting to see if the school districts are going to refile their challenge based on the new rule. But as of yesterday, their case was tossed out. And that involved Orange County schools, Alachua schools, Broward County, and Miami-Dade schools as well.
Leslie, does this new rule fall in line with CDC recommendations, or does it come across as more of a challenge to it?
Yes, it's definitely not following CDC recommendations, which is that a child exposed to someone who's positive should quarantine for 14 days. So Florida wasn't doing that, and this is obviously going in the other direction. And, to be fair, there is a lot of concern that when kids are quarantined, a lot of them never get sick and they never test positive and they are missing school. So, I mean, that has been a concern probably of parents on both sides of the mask mandate debate, because no one wants their kid to just be missing days and days of school. It's both an issue for the child making up work, and if it's a younger child, it can throw the parents' work schedule, kind of into disarray too. So that is part of the concern. But no, this certainly does not follow the CDC guidelines.
It is easy to see, the logic to those concerns, though. However, I do want to ask, as far as the discretion, this feels like it falls a lot under like an honor system. Has that been addressed?
The governor said yesterday he feels like parents will do the right thing. I heard from a parent who's already concerned that, if people aren't sending their kids to school in masks, that this is just going to be another way for the virus to spread because, parents who maybe aren't as concerned about COVID are just going to say, yes, my child was in class with someone who's positive, but I don't think they'll get sick, and I'm just going to keep them going back to school. And is that potentially, I mean, we know that asymptomatic people can spread the virus, and is that going to just lead to more spread in schools? We'll have to see.
Yes, we will. As this has become the new norm of things just rapidly changing in the education system here in Florida, be sure to stay up to date with Leslie's work available right now at orlandosentinel.com. Leslie, thank you so much. All right, Patrick, I want to come over to you now for one of your upcoming Florida Fresh Air features, which of course come out every Friday. Always be on the lookout for those. This new one coming out, though, we're talking about Lake Monroe Conservation Area. Can you tell us about your experience over there?
Sure. So Lake Monroe, it's a big lake. It sits right in between Sanford and Deltona. You probably see it whenever you drive past on I-4. And as the case with many waterways in Florida, it's very important because it flows into the St. Johns River. And so this conservation area protects more than 7,400 acres, that's 7,400 acres of sensitive wetlands on the shores of Lake Monroe and also the St. Johns River Basin. So, but what does that mean for people visiting? Well, the conservation area is actually 94% wetlands. So there's two different tracks. One of them is called the Catcert Track, and the other is called the Brickyard Slow Track. And I went hiking on the White Loop. Now, some of it's, very nice, kind of under a hardwood hammock, you're hiking, but some of it did get a little bit wet too. Worth keeping in mind that we're, in the wet season right now, but, you definitely want to mind your waterproof footwear or wear something that's quick drying because there were some parts where there were some, decently deep puddles, but still really beautiful, look at kind of wild, unspoiled natural Florida. And that's really the joy about getting out on these hikes is you kind of get a glimpse for, what was here before all of the development and tourism, a little bit of wild Florida.
So, for those who are interested in heading on over to Lake Monroe, what are some things they should know before they go?
So this conservation area is actually open 24 hours a day. It's managed by the St. Johns River Water Management District. So, free to use it whenever. There are actually primitive campsites in the Brickyard Slow Tract. One of them is reservable, and the other one is just first come, first serve. And that section actually has more hikes as well that I didn't have the chance to explore. But, your main activities are going to be hiking, biking, horseback riding on the trails. You can fish as well. And hikers will want to be mindful that at least the Catcert track is open for hunting during certain dates. So they actually have the dates for different seasons posted right at the entrance to the trail. So not to suggest that you should avoid it completely, but if you are going out there during any sort of hunting season, maybe wear orange. Of course, bug spray as usual. Don't want to make sure those mosquitoes don't get you. Pets are allowed. Leave your drones at home, but largely this land is just sort of open and free for people to use. It just is, like I mentioned, 94% wetlands. So just be mindful of that it could be a little wet and muddy.
Well, there you go. If you're trying to find out more about Lake Monroe Conservation Area, be on the lookout for Patrick's Florida Fresh Air feature releasing on Friday. Patrick, thank you so much. All right, JC, want to come over to you now to talk about some high school football. The first thing I want to address here, last week when we were talking, we were highlighting a game, and I believe that was a Coe versus a Popka that was supposed to play. However, they didn't actually play. Can you tell us about what happened?
Yeah, probably just a few hours after our show, that game was actually postponed until later in the season because Ocoee High School had some COVID-19 cases and some ordered quarantines. So no game last week for Ocoee, and then that also affected Ocoee's game this week as they were supposed to play West Orange in a big rivalry matchup. Ocoee is 3-0. So they've missed last week. They will miss this week, and then they already have a scheduled bye week for next week. So that's going to be 3 weeks without a football game for Ocoee. So it's a tough stretch for them, but that's where we are this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're moving into week 5, we're actually seeing a number of weird instances for schools who haven't played as much, or some schools that have played each other multiple times. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the schedule so far, as you mentioned, week 5 of the regular season is taking place Friday. But we have some schools that have only played 1 or 2 games so far. We have DeLand High School because of COVID within its team, COVID affecting opposing teams, weather issues that have caused field conditions, to be unsafe for playing games. So DeLand has only played 1 game so far this year. We have 8 other area schools that have only played 2 games so far this year. And so, when you look at, it's not just COVID that's causing issues, but as you've seen in recent weeks, the lightning, the heavy rainfall that we've had has also affected high school football. The game I covered last week did not start for an hour after its scheduled time because of lightning in the area. So hopefully we can get through this, once September passes us by here.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're on the topic of week 5 here, JC, I do want to ask about what are some of the top games that people can look forward to?
There's 2 games that really stand out to me, and the big one, you can kind of call it a clash of the Titans, I guess. It's Edgewater playing at Apopka. This is the first time these teams have played since 2016. Edgewater has finished state runner-up in Class 7A each of the past 2 years. Apopka was a state runner-up in Class 8A 2 years ago and reached the state semifinals just last year. Both teams have tons of talent on the offense and defense. This is the game that I will be covering. I expect a standing room only packed crowd, as we've seen during the high school football season so far this year. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there wanting to see this game. The other game recently, just actually announced last night, was Orange City University has not played a game at its home stadium all season long so far. This game against Lake Brantley was supposed to be played up at DeLand. That's since been changed. The game will take place at Lake Brantley. Orange City University, they've got a senior class that over the past few years, they've just steadily gotten better year by year. And this year, so far, 3-0 on the season. I've got them ranked in the top 10 of my Super 16 rankings. And they play against a quality Lake Brantley team that bounced back last week from a loss 2 weeks ago against Lake Mary. So that should be a great game as well.
Wow. A lot to keep up with there, JC. Thank you so much for keeping us up to date with it. But before we move on, I do want to ask you about one more thing looking forward here, and that would be playoff rankings that have been released. What's going on there?
Well, it's very early in the season, but the FHSAA did release its first batch of RPI rankings, and basically what this system does is it takes a team's win-loss record, and it factors in the win-loss record of a team's opponents and the opponents of those opponents. So you scrunch all those numbers together, and then they put out these RPI rankings. And what that does, it will help seed the playoff teams in the postseason. Now, the first batch came out yesterday. They will be released every Wednesday throughout the rest of the season, but it's very early in the season. So you have, as I said, some teams have only played 2 games, 3 games. So what you see this week, it's going to look a lot different a couple weeks down the road. So early on, we had Lake Mary and Sanford Seminole, the top teams in this area. Lake Mary is ranked number 3 overall, and Seminole is ranked number 5 in the RPI rankings. Those teams actually play next month on October 22nd, so they get to work that all out on the field. As I said, very early when it comes to these RPI rankings. Take it for what it's worth. Not worth a whole lot right now.
Well, there you go. Be on the lookout for those rankings as well as the outcomes of this week's matches. Take a look at JC's work for more on that. JC, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, before we all leave you today, we do want to talk about Thursday's weather presented by Premier Sotheby's International Realty. We've got some light rain in Thursday's forecast. There's a 20% chance of rain during the day and during the evening. That light rain will linger into the weekend, with the tail end getting foggy and stretching into Monday. Temperatures are looking a bit cooler now that we're in fall. Thursday's high is forecast for 85 and the low is at 74. Temperatures should remain similar to that way throughout the weekend. So something to look forward to there for sure. But if you're looking for more information on the weather or any of the stories that we covered here today, you can, of course, find it at orlandosentinel.com. And for those of you who are subscribers to the Orlando Sentinel, thank you so much for continuing to support our work and supporting local journalism so we can keep bringing you stories like this. If you want to become a supporter, it's easy to do so. All you need to do is visit orlandosentinel.com/subscribe. But as for OSN, that will do it for us today. A big thank you to Leslie, Patrick, and JC for keeping us filled in what's going on in our community. We'll be back again with more news tomorrow at noon. We'll see you then. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Watch Orlando Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on orlandosentinel.com.